Christmas 2025 has come and gone, and I recently listened to the unabridged version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and I grabbed my book because I wanted to look at something that a spirit said, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But as I was looking through this book, I didn't realize that Charles Dickens had written something at the beginning of A Christmas Carol. It says, "I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea, which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and with no wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, Charles Dickens, December 1843. So this was published in December of 1843. And I thought that was really fun. I probably knew and then forgot that Charles had written this little thing at the beginning of Christmas Carol. I just love that it says, may it haunt their houses pleasantly. But little did he know that there would be so many versions of A Christmas Carol still retold and told today. And I think a lot of people are very familiar with A Christmas Carol because of the Muppet version, which is one of my all-time favorites. But there's also the George C. Scott version, which I think is a lot closer to the book. But one of the things that really stuck out to me as I was listening to this again, I was once again reminded of the children that were hiding underneath the Spirit of Christmas present. Now, if you're only familiar with the Muppet version or some of the other more child-friendly, I guess, versions, you may not know that the Ghost of Christmas Present had these children that were hiding under his robes the whole time. And towards the very, very end of his time there, Scrooge sees, a foot, and the spirit then opens his robes and reveals a boy and a girl, and they're very haunted looking. They're very they seem malnourished, and it's a very, very grotesque and very scary scene. And I know that that's why they take it out of the more child-friendly versions of A Christmas Carol. But the George C. Scott version does have those kids, because I remember that scene and I remember being terrified by them. But as I was listening to it, the words of the Spirit of Christmas Present, when he was talking about ignorance, really rang true. And I was very overwhelmed by how apropos his words still are today. When Charles Dickens was writing this in 1843, and here it is, we are looking into 2026, and his words still have so much power and so much meaning. So what happens is Scrooge sees the foot, and then the spirit opens his robes, and Scrooge says, "Spirit, are they yours?" So he's saying, "Hey, Spirit, is the boy and girl under your robes, are they your children?" "They are man's," said the Spirit, looking down upon them, "and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. The boy is ignorance, the girl is want. Beware them both, and all of their degree. But most of all, beware this boy, for on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased. Deny it," cried the Spirit, stretching out his hands towards the city. "Slander those who will tell it ye, admit it for your factious purpose, and make it worse, and bide the end." So basically what the Spirit is saying, if you continue to allow people to spread ignorance and not deny it, and he says, slander those who tell it ye. So stop the people who are speaking in ignorance. And then we will erase the doom that is written on ignorance's forehead. But if we admit it for our factious purpose, so if we continue to feed into ignorance, if we continue to spread ignorance for our own purpose, which will feed into the doom that is the pending doom that the Spirit sees. And yeah, that there's, I think, really a very, very appropriate meaning here, and something that we all must take into 2026. this warning that the spirit of Christmas present says, that you must stop ignorance, basically, because upon ignorance's forehead, the spirit of Christmas present is foreshadowing the doom of humanity. And unless we stop the people who are spreading it, and we ourselves do not become part of spreading that ignorance, then humanity is doomed. Have there no refugee or resources? Cried Scrooge. So a lot of people are familiar with when Scrooge says at the very beginning, oh, well, you know, the poor people, they can just go to the prisons or the poorhouses. And now Scrooge is faced with pending doom, basically, and he sees children, the symbolism of want and ignorance, and he wants to know if there's any resources to help them. Are there no prisons? Said the spirit, turning on him for the last time with his own words. Are there no workhouses? So the ending of the spirit of Christmas present with Scrooge is actually a lot darker than some of the child-focused versions of A Christmas Carol. But it's very, very important, I think. We tend to focus on Scrooge's greed a lot, and it is very important. It's one of the most important overarching messages in this whole book is, you know, how his greed is basically part of his doom and the change that he is forming in the afterlife. But we also need to remember what the ghost of Christmas present says about ignorance, to be aware of that, to be careful of what we are spreading, to be mindful of what we are talking about, of the information that we are putting out there, because ignorance is the same as the doom of humanity. And yeah, how very deep, how very appropriate for all the things that are going on as we are looking into 2026. But remember that this has a very beautiful ending, and there is always hope. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your 2025. Happy New Year. Let's end 2025 on a very strong note and look forward with hope into 2026.